At the suggestion of my therapist, I've decided to write out and share what has transpired in my life over the last year. To get this to make any coherent sense took lots of edits and couple of rewrites. I used to be a fairly talented writer, but I fell out of practice years ago. This forum was recommended to me by a friend as a method of confession, penance, and a warning to share with others. I did something truly horrible for which the whole consequences were beyond even the worst thing I could ever have imagined. I am sharing this with the full knowledge of what I did and the events that took place because of my betrayal. Reading my own words is revolting because I know, in a very real sense, what I did is unforgivable. I understand far too well how needlessly tragic the event that transpired truly were. My hope is simply that my story can be shared with anyone in any relationship, and perhaps some future betrayal won't happen. More specifically, I hope someone who is currently cheating on their significant other or even thinking about it might read this and it make them pause. Many might think that my example of what can go wrong being unfaithful is an extreme rarity that seldom occurs. I've been told by people far more knowledgeable than I am that my situation is sadly far from unique. But I'm willing to take the hate I will receive by sharing this if it keeps even one person from breaking the heart of someone they love. I am a 28-year-old female and I was married to a wonderful man. I will call him William. 8 months ago, my husband confronted me with proof I had been both emotionally and physically unfaithful. A few days after he confronted me about my infidelity, my husband committed suicide. I realized just typing those words out has caused people I don't even know to hate me. I couldn't believe I had the capability to do something that evil to harm someone I'd loved since we were children, but I did it. If you'd asked either me or William if either of us would ever be unfaithful, we both would have laughed. But to my own shock and surprise, I allowed myself to lose focus and strayed. I knew it would destroy him if he ever found out, but I took the heart of the man I loved and crushed it so cruelly he couldn't endure the pain of this life anymore. Those of you thinking right now that I don't deserve to be breathing, I agree with you. I agree with you so much I've attempted on 2 occasions to make that a reality. I'm assured there is a reason I'm still here. For the moment, I've convinced myself that the longer I live, the more I suffer. And I don't deserve the mercy of a suicide, if we're being honest. William and I grew up together. I can remember my very early youth, and at no time in my memory did I not know William. We were in the same Sunday school classes, public school classes, and our families had been friends long before he and I ever came along. He could always make me laugh. Kids can be mean, but William never was. I realized I thought he was cute in 6th grade. It wasn't an official crush until high school. William and I had been our one and only loves from early high school all the way through college together. We were best friends and cherished each other so much. After graduation, we took a year to get good, stable jobs near our families and decided to get married. We took vacations together. We made love at any moment we got the chance. We were ravenous for each other. The only time sex was off the table was during that time of the month, but we'd make love for hours. Beautiful moments of passion, and I threw it all away for something tawdry, cheap and worthless. We were planning to have children. We knew their names. We were both virgins. He was my first everything, and I was his first everything. Part of me wishes I could say I had a drunken one-night stand, tried to keep that from my husband, but he found out. No, I got emotionally and physically involved with a man who was inferior to my husband in every way, shape, and form. I didn't even consider the possibility that a friendship with another man could lead to an attachment forming. My husband and I had a strong marriage. As foolish as that sounds to say now, we really did. My husband was the epitome of strength. I was the one who was weak. Though before this, I considered myself a strong woman. It's just that no one ever told me that while our relationship was so very strong, no relationship is bulletproof. There is not a day that goes by that I don't wish someone had walked up and shot me the minute before anything I did became secretive. It is an indisputable fact the world would be a far better place with my husband here and alive instead of me. There is no rationalizing away truth like that. I had so many chances to stop it before anything happened, and I had absolutely no reason to allow anything to happen. After a brief and heated conversation, he walked out and I never spoke to him again. I tried to contact him in any and every way I could think of. My God, I tried to reach out so many times just to let him know that I am truly sorry. Just to say I hate what I did. My text to him never showed anything but an unread status to me. So, I doubt he read any email or heard any voicemails either. But everyone said I needed to give him space and time to think. 2 nights after William confronted me at 3:17 a.m., there was a loud knock at the front door. I turned on the lights. I thought at first it might be someone in a drunken stupor wanting to curse me out or worse. Then there was another loud knock, and I threw on a hoodie before heading to the door. When I opened the door to see 2 policemen, I knew. They could have been there for so many things, but I knew in an instant why they were there. Their words telling me that my husband's body had been found due to an apparent suicide destroyed me. I dropped to my knees and wailed a shriek of agony. I tore at my skin and hair as the police tried to calm me down. By the time the EMTs got there, I was sitting on the steps, rocking back and forth, repeating that I was so sorry. Yeah, there was no way I was making it to the funeral, even if William's family had allowed any of my family to attend. I was kept sedated for days. The first thing I wanted to do when I got out was visit William's grave, but nobody knew where his parents had buried him. They had every right, but that cut deeply, and I tried to cut deeply that night when I tried to take my life for the first time. I've now been hospitalized twice for attempted suicide. Not asking for pity, in fact, I don't want it. Nothing can take this heartache away, and nothing can even numb it. Part of me wishes I had somehow forced him to see me just for a mere moment to tell him how sorry I am and that I knew our marriage was over, but I didn't get that. No, I didn't deserve it. And I have to face the fact that what I did was in fact so vile that making my husband see me might have forced him to take his life even sooner. Many people have said to me my actions were what led him to take his life. I don't think there is any doubt. Until that horrible day, he'd been so unbelievably happy. We both had been. He left no suicide notes to verify I was his cause of death. But we had been so happy, we loved spending nearly every moment together. To go from that kind of bliss to that kind of grief in such a short span of time ended him. I ended him. My words, actions, and thoughts betrayed us both. Regret doesn't kill you. If it did, I would have died before my husband ever confronted me. When COVID hit, William and I quarantined together. I was fortunate enough to teach for an exclusive private school. The benefactors assured us our salary was paid as long as the need for isolation persisted. William worked from home and made a lot of progress on a project he was placed in charge of. The entire world was worried and afraid, but we had each other and we so enjoyed making the most of it. Watching movies in bed, feeding each other food, playing like 2 little kids. I am utterly, truly, completely sorry to those that lost a loved one due to that horrible disease. What the world went through was a literal plague upon humanity that caused so much needless death. But my husband and I got closer in those weeks than we ever had before, and our bond had been strong. We joked about how so many people were hating having to spend time with family, or God forbid, their wife or husband. We simply couldn't get enough of each other. After the first month, we had to agree to limit sex to once a day for about a week. Our only argument the entire quarantine was about having to do laundry just to put clean sheets on the bed yet again. And I cheated on that man, which drove him to exit his life due to my evil actions. A man I had such a close bond with. I was an idiot in so many ways. But for me to think because of that bond, no temptation was enough to get me to stray was idiocy. I hate myself in so many ways for so many reasons, but knowing I had it all is the most difficult pill to swallow. My affair was atypical of most in many ways. Some aspects of the relationship and betrayal were slightly less vile, some were colder and even more evil. The man I had an affair with I will call Paul. I first encountered him in a group Zoom meeting during the pandemic. I found him brash and smug with no valid reason to act that way. He was the school's lacrosse coach, and I remember in every Zoom meeting being glad that as an English teacher I would have to interact with him very little. The first time we met face to face, we shook hands and had some small talk. There was zero attraction, at least from me towards him. But I didn't sense any lustful attention emulating from him towards me. During that introduction, I learned he was engaged and I told him I was happily married to a man I adored. No sexual tension, nothing even hinting that would ever be a possibility. The school began allowing half the staff in all areas and half students to attend school for a week while the other half used Zoom. The next week, the other half would attend on site and vice versa. That was supposed to assist with social distancing and the students' feeling of isolation. While eating lunch one day before my next class began, I got an email from Paul. He had written out some toasts and jokes for his upcoming wedding and wanted me to edit what he'd written. I was used to being sent writings to edit, so that was nothing I felt important enough to tell William. Coupled with the fact it all pertained to Paul's wedding, and I saw no reason to give my husband a boring detail about that day. The email contained a toast to his parents as well as to the parents of the bride. I took what he'd said and added a few phrases to pull at the heartstring of all who attended. The jokes directed at his brother, the best man, were absolutely hilarious, but a little vulgar for my liking at a wedding. I said as much when I sent back his edited speeches. He laughed and said I just don't know his family and that ball busting was a family tradition. That email exchange began several months of corresponding back and forth, but as difficult as it may believe, not until the very end did anything become inappropriate. Not once did anything become flirtatious or sexual. Well, we did talk about sex, but from a purely scientific and psychological point of view. Our sex talks at that point would have made the biggest nymphomania in history drier than the Sahara. There was nothing emotional or physically stimulating to those conversations, and I enjoyed our corresponding due to the fact I was certain there was no temptation on either end. We discussed race, politics, religion, science, sports, all the things people are hesitant to discuss due to differing opinions. Some of the discussions even got heated. I was called a prude more than once due to my opinion about sex. Yes, I proved him wrong, but I wish to God he'd been right. For the longest time, all of this took place during work hours. My husband and I had a landline for emergencies, but as soon as we entered the door at home, my smartphones were turned off. Paul didn't even have my number to text until I emailed him with a zinger at the end late in the day. He demanded my number to refute what I had sent. Dozens of other co-workers had my email and I thought nothing of that. I seriously don't think Paul had any interest in pursuing me either, as at the time he was smoothing with his fiancée. But about a month before this big day, Paul found out his girlfriend had been carrying on an affair with her high school boyfriend for over a year. He was in shock and deeply hurt by the whole situation. I unwittingly became his person to vent to. I don't know where in our string of conversation that things crossed a line, but I began to feel truly sorry for Paul. I truly despised his fiancée for what she'd done, and I saw nothing wrong with that. But after a particular rough night for him, he came to school looking frazzled, and I could tell he'd been crying. I gave him a hug and talked to him a bit. He asked if I could stay after school to talk. Since I had a couple hours after work each day before William got home, I agreed. In hindsight, I realize now what drew me into my conversation with Paul from a different opinion. William and I had discussed most any topic two people could discuss. I knew before his reply what William would say when I asked him a question the vast majority of the time. I guess I wanted a surprise when I talked or verbal conflict. It was stupid, pathetic, and weak, but that is what led to the affair. Thank you for watching.